Welcome to the Workforces Podcast. I'm Julian Alsid.
And I'm Caitlin Lemoyne, and we speak with innovators who are shaping the future of work and learning.
Together, we unpack the complex elements of workforce and career preparation and offer practical solutions that can be scaled and sustained.
This podcast is an outgrowth of our Workforces consulting practice. Through weekly discussions, we seek to share the trends and themes we see in our work and amplify impactful efforts happening in higher education, industry, and workforce development all across the country. We are grateful to Lumina Foundation for its past support during the initial development and launch of this podcast and invite future sponsors of this effort. Please check out our Workforces Podcast website to learn more. And so with that, let's dive in. In some of our more recent episodes, we've focused on the technical requirements for making credentials portable and transparent. While data standards and credential portability are essential to strengthening educational pathways for learners, many higher education institutions also still operate with an internal wall, so to speak, that separates credit programs from non-credit workforce development offerings.
Yes, and the separation can be difficult for learners to navigate. We often see degree programs and short-term training operate with different funding structures and institutional goals, and breaking down these silos is an important priority for community college leaders.
And our guest today is leading institutional efforts to address these challenges. Ian Roark serves as the Provost and Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs and Workforce Development at Pima Community College. He brings over 25 years of experience in education to this role, spanning K-12 leadership and community college administration.
Under Ian's leadership, Pima has been at the forefront of workforce innovation through the development of specialized centers for excellence and new models for apprenticeships and community college baccalaureate degrees. Ian also serves on a number of boards and committees at the local, state, and national levels. Notably, he was named to the Aspen Presidential Fellowship for Community College Excellence in 2019, called to serve on the Higher Learning Commission's Credential Lab Innovation Design Team in 2024, and has advised numerous organizations, including New America and Education Design Lab.
At Pima, Ian is implementing a no wrong door strategy to ensure that every student has a direct path to economic mobility and higher wages, regardless of where they begin their educational journey. Welcome to this podcast, Ian. We're so glad to have you with us today.
Great. Thanks, Julian. And thanks, Caitlin. It's a little embarrassing at times or humbling to hear a little bit of your biography read out loud. So I just want to start off by saying it's an honor to serve Pima Community College and our Southern Arizona community in this role. And none of those things would have ever happened if it weren't for the amazing work of the team that supports me, administrators, as well as our amazing faculty and staff at the institution. And I'd like to give a special shout out to our Chancellor, Dr. Jeff Nassy, to whom I report, as it was his idea to merge academic affairs and workforce development under this combined role as Provost. And so really excited to speak with you and the audience around the journey that we've been on at Pima Community College for this past 11 years and counting.
Okay, well, we can't wait to dive in with you on all of that today. Ian, to get us started, can you please tell us in your own words a little bit more about your background and the journey that led to your current role and work at Pima?
Yeah, sure. I like to start off by saying I've been in school since I entered kindergarten. I haven't worked in the private sector ever, although a lot of my work has engaged the private sector quite often, especially in the workforce development roles that I've held in the past. So it's interesting to spend your whole entire working life and school life in school, both in K-12 and in higher ed, as a student and as a staff member, faculty member, and now administrator. I sometimes, if I had to, compare myself to what is your specialty? I'm sort of a Swiss Army knife of education in ways. Right. I started off as a music teacher. I have a music degree. I quickly went into getting certified in K-12 to teach social sciences, and I've taught everything from sociology to psychology to history to world geography and world history. I did a lot of curriculum work in K-12, really outlining entire scopes of sequences from kindergarten to seniors in high school on learning outcomes and how those can be assessed. Went into administration K-12 as a career tech director, and I had campus principal oversight over a technical campus. So really got to do a lot of operational work, right, and working with faculty and working with students. My first role in higher education was as Dean of Career and Technical Education at Odessa College in Odessa, Texas, and just would like to give another shout out to my sponsor, mentor, and friend, Dr. Greg Williams, who is still president at Odessa after all these years, who opened the door for community college work and really opened my eyes. And then the community college experience really just, I fell in love with it. I mean, he promised me that you'll never want to do anything else when you enter community college. You're going to want to stay here until you retire. And so far, he's been right, just what we do at the community college world. So I served as dean and then executive dean at Odessa College. And I came to Pima Community College in 2015. Then we were structured as 6 quasi-independent campuses, each with a president reporting to our then Chancellor, Lee Lambert. I reported to one president, but I was the first matrix vice president, meaning the institution was rigidly structured around these campuses and the reporting lines at these campuses. And the intent all along was for my role and the team that I've built to start working cross-functionally on all these campuses with deans and faculty to break down barriers and silos as it related to serving employers in our community and ensuring that our learners had pathways to upward mobility in key industry sectors. And so my role has evolved over all of these years. I was vice president of workforce development, then became vice president of workforce development and strategic partnerships, then vice chancellor of workforce development and innovation, and then now this past year serving both as acting and now non-acting provost and executive vice chancellor. And really the journey all along has been pointed, in the direction of what you outlined, which is breaking down these artificial barriers that in higher education we put up, right? These firewalls between credit and non-credit, between workforce programs and academic programs. These are things that we've constructed on our own, in part because we're incentivized by our accreditation systems, by our federal financial aid systems to do so, but also because it's fall, spring, summer, rinse, repeat. Higher education is a very, going back to my music roots, rhythmic, right? There's a rhythm that's always underlying the operations, and it goes back, as you know, to an agrarian calendar, to Carnegie units that are named after a prominent individual who literally created it just as a way for us to account for how the time we spend doing things in higher education. So once those things are set, it's very hard for us to break out of those molds of these silos and these firewalls. But at Pima, we're doing some really interesting and amazing work, not just because it's interesting and amazing, but because we have seen firsthand how eliminating these silos and breaking down these traditional firewalls is what's best for our students, is what's best for our community, and ultimately allows us to fulfill our mission at Pima, which is to empower every learner for every goal every day.
Well, it seems that the big firewall is the academic affairs and workforce development separation. And
right.
So Pima's made this strategic decision to merge these worlds with you now at the helm of that effort. Can you speak with us a bit about the reasoning behind the shift and kind of how it supports this idea of a no wrong door approach for learners?
Yeah, really, right? So at the end of the day, whether a student is coming to Pima Community College for adult basic education, where they want to earn their high school equivalency because perhaps they dropped out of high school or had circumstances that impacted that educational journey, or, put it to a stop, whether they're coming to us for non-credit workforce training, or as we're starting to refer to it as professional credit for upskilling and reskilling opportunities, or they're coming to us for a credit-bearing certificate or a degree in career and technical education, and or still a primary mission of transfer. 2/3 of our students on any given year are coming here because they want to transfer, and primarily to the University of Arizona. We are proud to partner with them, of course, here in Tucson. At the end of the day, they're not doing that because they want to earn college credit or get a certificate. They're doing these things. They're choosing Pima because of what's at the end of that educational journey, whichever door they enter. It's because they know that whether it's earning a certificate, earning a degree, getting an industry recognized credential, or completing the Arizona general education curriculum to transfer to one of our state universities, or earning a full transfer degree and then transferring. They're doing all of these things because they know at the end of that, there's a better job opportunity. And so at the end of the day, it's really about workforce development, whether we call it transfer, whether we call it workforce development, whether we call it career and technical education. Our students are seeking and earning these credentials because of what it does for them and their households, which is
Mhm.
a better pathway to upward mobility. So we really need to start framing all of it as workforce development. It's not this dichotomy that we have erected and then perpetuate. It really is, workforce development for all of our students. And it's great, right, that our transfer students want to pursue transfer degrees. We want to ensure that they're making those choices, though, in a career context. And so a little bit of our work this past year has been working across academic affairs and in partnership with student affairs to look at what the first year experience looks like for all of our learners. And so starting next year, we are having a more career focused first year experience and onboarding process for all of our students. And, one of our strategic plan goals that's emerging out of our current strategic planning process is, what would it look like if every single learner at the college, whether they're a transfer student, even in a traditional area like psychology or economics or a STEM field like engineering, what would it look like if every single learner had an opportunity to have a work-based learning experience or an experiential experience tied to real-world application as part of their program of study? And that's kind of how we're approaching it, is that could be the reality, especially when we start to think about the impact of artificial intelligence and things like XR or AR, VR technology. How can we even use those sorts of technologies to bring those real world applications into the classroom if we can't physically tie every single student to an internship or a job shadow per se? So those are the things we're thinking about, already putting in place with respect to the first year experience. And it's really an exciting time to see how really across the college, faculty, like in particular, are embracing this. I know that Julian knows one of my partners and a team member, the Assistant Vice Chancellor of Workforce Development, Amanda Abens. She's traveling with one of our journalism faculty in a transfer program to a journalism conference to talk about the unification of workforce development and the academic piece in this particular program of study. And so we're seeing people really embrace the idea that this is not a dichotomy. We are one family, one team, focused on one mission, which is to better serve our students so that they can accomplish their college and career goals, whatever those may be, as long as they are tied to a pathway for upward mobility.
So to that point, the last point you just made, how are you working to ensure that the pathways that are set up lead to tangible outcomes like wage gains, right? While making it easier for students to stack those skills? Because what you said earlier about really all of this learning is workforce development in some ways, I think really
Right.
resonates for us. I mean, we have talked about that, Julian, I feel like numerous times, just about
Mhm.
like, at least at the high level of, man, I feel like now more than ever, education is so, the point is like, how do we think about how to develop talent, and like,
Right.
what does that look like, and what does it look like to develop the workforce of the future? And so when you said that really resonated with me, but I'm curious to hear a little bit more about what is your thinking behind building for those tangible outcomes.
Yeah. In the opening, Julian mentioned the centers of excellence that
Yeah.
are at our now 5 campuses at Pima
Yeah.
Community College, and we are seeking to open more. But we over the past decade have been opening these centers of excellence that are not only extraordinary physical locations of great magnitude with respect to career technical education and increased square footage, top of the line, state of the art technology, working with industry to develop our programs, but it's also concentrating programs on a single geography so that faculty can co-create programs together aligned to business and industry. And we've done a lot of great work in the workforce development and technical education space. So we've started a lot of new programs with exactly what you said, Caitlin, in mind, which is, what are the pathways that are aligned to the economic development priorities of our community and that lead to opportunities for increased wages and upward mobility. I won't go through all of them, but I'll talk about some of them,
That'd be
right?
great.
And I do want to put it in the context of the difference of workforce development in the here and now and workforce development with an economic development lens, because there is a difference. Workforce development here and now is really about our institution's ability to respond to whatever request business and industry brings to us today. So my ability, my team's ability to respond to whatever request, say you or Julian brought forward, Caitlin, as a potential employer, hypothetical employer in our community, is really based on whether or not we foresaw that request coming. So we can only respond with the capacity that we have now, which is based on past strategy. Current strategy that is rooted in economic development means partnering not only within business and industry, but business and industry associations, our economic development partners. For us, that's the Chamber of Southern Arizona, the economic development offices of Pima County and all of our surrounding municipalities, including Tucson, suburbs, and really learning about where community leadership, civic leadership wants Tucson and Pima County to be 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and designing our programs with that mindset at the forefront. So pictured behind me is an example of that. That's a over 100,000 square foot advanced manufacturing training center that was conceptualized in 2017 in partnership with business and industry, opened 2 years ago, and it was built under the prospect of we are becoming an advanced manufacturing community. 10 years ago, we weren't. We were a call center community. Now, the predominant number of economic development leads that our partners bring to the community are in advanced manufacturing. And so we built this center not because it's an awesome facility and has lots of cool things in it, like robots and lasers and optics and all these things. It's because we knew that's where the civic leadership wanted the community to go. And now we have the ability to train at scale for any employer partner that either relocates or expands in our community. So that's been the trajectory over the past decade. Areas like advanced manufacturing, IT cybersecurity, the new health professions center of excellence. But right now we also have a challenge, Caitlin, which is we are over 50 years old, right? Almost 55 years old as an institution, and we have a lot of legacy programs. We're having to look at those, say, is this really the best way to offer this program to our learners? Is it really the best program for us to have? Is it really aligned to business and industry? So I'm sure, like many listeners on of this show, we have our program review processes, right? That sort of answer those questions on for us, a 4-year cycle of program review for every program. But by merging academic affairs and workforce development, we have brought in all of the expertise of the workforce development team into the program review process to help the academic affairs professionals answer that question and together. Right. So previously that really wasn't the case, right? Academic affairs had its own process and workforce development over here. We were starting lots of new programs in partnership, but we really didn't have a role in assessing and validating all of the existing legacy programs. And so the unification of academic affairs and workforce development really allows for the opening of the door down to a very detailed and rigorous level of depth and engagement, analyzing the outcomes of programs, not only in the traditional context of persistence, retention, and completion, but labor market alignment. Is this credential actually what is required to get the job that this program purports to allow students to get? And is it really, right, a good return on investment for the individual learner, their household, and the community at large for us to be offering this program at this price point? Perhaps there's a different way we can offer it. So that's just a little bit about how we're thinking of both the starting up of the new programs in a center of excellence context, but looking at the legacy programs that we have and being really judicious on how we answer those questions with respect to market-driven curriculum.
It is such a challenge. When you first started talking about, like fall, spring, summer, rinse, repeat, having spent my time, in community college and working a lot more on the workforce side, it isn't, as that is not necessarily the same calendar, like if you're responding to workforce needs, they happen when they happen. And so I'm still interested. So I get the idea of like kind of bringing rigor to trying to figure out how legacy programs fit. But of course, your team, your faculty, they did not sign on. The academic faculty, by and large, didn't sign on to like responding to the flavor of the day or the technology of the moment. And so how do you begin to reconcile the two in actuality and practice? And can you give us an example or two? So for example, I mean, I'll say in our world, we're doing some work now with community college that, like many, kind of had their manufacturing programs sort of go away on the credit side because who's going to wait all that time to get a degree when you can go out and get a decent job with less training? Now there's kind of a resurgence. How do we bring these programs back, both for short-term credentialing and for longer term? How do you do it? And can you give us some example or two?
Yeah, certainly. Of course, it varies by program area, right? Because these things are not monolithic across even career and technical education, let alone traditional transfer programs. Every industry is different. And I think that's the first thing we have to keep in mind is let's work with our industry partners to really, truly understand what's going on in their particular corner of the labor market, and then ensure that we are responding in kind, right? Because a credit program is certainly not the answer to every labor market issue, and neither is a short-term training program the answer to every labor market issue. It really is industry specific and market driven. And so, of course, the cornerstone of that is partnership. So if faculty and deans are designing programs without the input and connections that the workforce development internal partners bring to the table, and with respect to not only advisory committee members, but again, the thinking that economic development partners and workforce investment board partners and, community-based organization partners bring to the table with respect to the diversity of people that we're serving in our community, then we're really designing programs, in isolation and perpetuating sort of those stovepipes, if you will. So, of course, it's industry alignment first and foremost. But then how we approached it at Pima, A, because of resources and just the necessity of it, but B, understanding if we're going to eliminate, these stovepipes, these silos, that we didn't start building short-term or not-for-credit or professional credit upskilling, reskilling opportunities in isolation of our full-time faculty and deans. The strategic choice that we made intentionally all along was that we are going to shelve all of our white labeling and third-party non-credit offerings. Right. That's not Pima. This may not be the case for every other community college, and I'm not certainly suggesting that every community technical college should or could do this. But for us, based on feedback we got from employers and, frankly, non-credit students in 2020, when we were working with the Education Design Lab to develop our Pima Fast Track program, short-term non-credit programs that wholly stack into our certificate and degree programs, the feedback was do away with all of the white labeling things that you're doing and invest in building non-credit programs that are unique to you, Pima. And so we understood that the only way we can do that is to engage not only our industry partners, but our full-time faculty and our adjunct faculty who are subject matter experts. And so all of our non-credit offerings that we offer through our divisions are designed and developed by our full-time faculty and adjunct faculty in partnership with business and industry. And then they are taught by those same individuals. And if we can't find an adjunct faculty member in the existing pool, we, of course, work with industry partners to recruit, as do many community colleges from our advisory committee or other partners to teach those courses. And so a prime example, just yesterday evening, super excited. We did a ribbon cutting for, you can't see it, a building behind the building picture is our new building construction technology facility that, our Dean, Greg Wilson of Applied Technology, and department head, faculty member John Gerard, really co-led in terms of developing and opening. It's 20,000 square feet under roof for HVAC, both residential and industrial, plumbing, electrical, so on and so forth. It's an amazing facility, and it was a long time coming. But during the ribbon cutting speeches, it was recognized that the building construction technology faculty and team don't only serve the credit-seeking students that will be taking classes now in that new facility. They are actually teaching classes at what's called Humberto Lopez Family Foundation Center of Opportunity, which is a residential facility for the unsheltered people in our community. They are delivering building construction technology training at that facility off-site in a non-credit fashion. They partner with our instructors that teach in our state penitentiary system, who we're also delivering our certificate programs in construction technology at that site. They've partnered with Habitat for Humanity to do offsite, work related to building tiny homes for people who need shelter in our community. And they do non-credit workforce training fast track programs in this new facility, as they did in the old, and also provide the related technical instruction for apprenticeship. So just in that example, and by the way, I forgot, our building construction technology faculty also work with our adult basic education team on offering what's called integrated basic education skills training, or IBEST, which is where people who don't yet have their high school diploma are taking college level building construction technology courses that are co-taught by reading and mathematics faculty and building construction technology faculty in the same class, not at the same week, or like literally in the same class, these co-design classes, that's preparing them to pass their GED and earn a college certificate all at the same time. That's just one program. That's building construction technology, right? So that shows that when you have, the mindset of innovation, but the open hands of partnership between workforce development and academic affairs internally, right, how faculty and teams will respond, right? They are truly offering their curriculum in every way you could imagine, just with that one example. And I could go on with others, but you asked for one, Julian. So, a shout out and congratulations to them again for the ribbon cutting event that we had yesterday. And, they deserve the accolades because they truly are living out what you're talking about. In building construction technology, there is no wrong door. No matter who you are in our community, if you want the outcomes that program provides, you will find an open door.
Yeah, it really is striking how many pathways into that programming there are, and that you've built in direct response to community needs. I mean, I'm wondering, what happens when perhaps there's a workforce development program or offering that maybe aligns with multiple academic programs? How do you go about navigating that? I don't know how much of a nitty-gritty question that is, but it feels like, wow, I mean, there's a lot of transferable skills and transferable content knowledge, right? And so what does that look like?
Well, we literally just went through a whole entire process to answer that question for what's called the optics industry here in Southern Arizona. So optics and photonics is a very important enabling technology that is in many different industries. For those that aren't familiar with Tucson and Southern Arizona, we have a large operation of RTX, or AKA Raytheon here, which is advanced manufacturing and integration with respect to aerospace and defense. We also have a lot of maintenance and repair operations in aviation technology. And then from there, we have just a lot of small and medium-sized suppliers in advanced manufacturing that serve as a hub to these primary industries. And then also we have medical device manufacturing with Roche Ventana here in Tucson. Roche is an international company. Optics is a central integrated technology in all of these different fields. And so, we were approached with, by what's called the Optics Valley outgrowth, if you will, of the Arizona Technology Council, an entity that we partner with often and rely on with respect to their expertise and engagement with all of the technological fields throughout Arizona, and especially for us, Southern Arizona. And at first, the conversations were sort of what we experience a lot in community college, which there's a labor market need for this specialized skill set among optics and photonics technicians. You need an optics and photonics degree. Well, we started looking in working with the group and on analyzing the labor market and what optics and photonic technicians actually do. And at the end of the day, we all came together in not only consensus, but agreement of, a degree program for Pima in optics and photonics might be a thing down the road. But what we're seeing is that these are additive skills to programs that we already offer in our automated industrial technology and manufacturing programs. And so together we co-created some upskilling and reskilling opportunities in the professional credit space that we are about to launch on April 27th. We will launch our first round, which is basically the fundamentals of optics and photonics. And then over the summer, handling in logistics with respect to optics and photonics. And so, it was a prime example of what you talked about. Like, we didn't really need to start from scratch. We already had a lot of programs that were 70, 80% aligned, perhaps. These are, pulling the numbers out of my hat, like they vary per program, but like a lot of alignment already. But we were missing key pieces. And that means we were missing subject matter expertise among our faculty, and we were missing the equipment needed to make up the rest of that gap. And so by partnering together, we have our subject matter experts with new adjunct faculty. We have new equipment that Optics Valley helped us acquire, and it's been a great partnership. And so a shout out to Katie Schwartz from Optics Valley, and again, Dean Wilson and his faculty, and our workforce development team under Assistant Vice Chancellor Amanda Abens, who really came together to, again, co-create something that was market-driven and aligned to exactly what the industry was required.
Wow, I have so many questions, Ian, and I think we may have to have a chapter 2, chapter 3, because you're just like, it's amazing what you've been doing, for years, and so cool to see to learn more about the latest iteration and have this catch up. For our audience, for our listeners, what practical steps can you offer, whether they're higher ed leaders or, kind of navigating the change you're talking about, and organizational change and policy and economic changes, or employers looking for deeper partnerships? What practical steps can you suggest to help these folks better align their work with one another to really serve our learners on the workforce?
To my colleagues and peers who are in positions of leadership and decision making at your community and technical colleges, thinking about workforce development not as a series of programs, but as a paradigm is the first step, right? When you think of it's workforce development, and so you automatically picture somebody with a hammer or a welding torch or a ratchet set in an automotive technology lab. That really feeds back into the stereotypes of, in this corner we have workforce development, and in that corner we have our academics, right? You really need to think about workforce development as a paradigm. How is your entire institution and all of the programs that you offer aligned to the labor market, whether it's at the certificate, 2-year degree, or bachelor's degree level? Even if you're only offering the first 2 years of a bachelor's degree in your transfer programs, are they actually aligned to the bachelor's degrees that your community needs with respect to economic development and upward mobility? So workforce development, not as a series of programs, but as a paradigm. And then secondly, are you investing in your workforce development team, or are you expecting them to earn their own revenue? A strategic shift that we made at Pima Community College is that we generally fund, as a part of the regular budget, our workforce development team, because 11 years ago, that team was charged with, quote, selling non-credit training. And what we discovered was they're selling a product our industry partners in the community didn't want or need. They want some of that, but not enough to sustain an entire workforce development unit. What did our business industry partners want? They wanted new programs, apprenticeships, certificates, degrees, buildings, all of the things that a revenue generating self-sustaining unit wasn't empowered to do, wasn't funded to do. And so we removed that sort of disincentive for workforce development to partner with academics by saying, we're going to generally fund you. And the commitment that we made back to the institution is, you will see the development of new credit programs, new non-credit programs, apprenticeships, grant-making opportunities, philanthropic partnerships through our Pima Foundation, because we're gaining credibility with business and industry, which opens that door. And now, which you're again, a physical manifestation behind me, new things at the college that nobody 15 years ago would have even thought possible. And true to our word, we have delivered at the institution on that promise by investing in workforce development and thinking about it as a paradigm and not a series of programs or an isolated self-sustaining unit over in the corner. We have shaped the trajectory of the entire institution. Importantly, right, we have credibility with business and industry. We can always do more. We can always do better. But we have gained a lot of credibility with business and industry. And that's important, not only for the reputation of the institution, But again, back to our mission, what we're really about, which is opening the doors for people in our community to pathways that they never would have imagined themselves setting foot on, places where they can go from abject poverty, not having any education at all, to being able to sustain entire households with the earnings that they have in these new and exciting occupations that we are now aligned to be able to provide that education and training experience for. It really is, those are the two things. I know I broadened it back to the mission, but workforce development is a paradigm, and invest in your workforce development team. Don't leave them out there gnawing on leather on some ship, as they're trying to cross the Pacific Ocean. Give them the tools they need to help the rest of your college achieve its mission.
Well, thank you so much for those very practical steps. Really love the focus on really this holistic, intentional strategy that allows for teams to be working cross-functionally and really, as you're saying, right, everyone rises when we have a chance to collaborate in such a not only cross-functional but just mutually beneficial way, both for people within the institution, for the learners, and for the community at large. As we wind down the conversation today, Ian, how can our listeners learn more and continue to follow your work and the innovations and great efforts happening at Pima?
Yeah, usually I would say I post a lot on LinkedIn. It's the only social media outlet you'll find me in. I've been a little busy with this joint role of academic affairs and workforce development. Right? We're still reorganizing. We're still figuring some things out. So I'm a little behind on the LinkedIn posting, but LinkedIn is a great place to see some of the things that we've done, and I will start posting again at some point soon. And occasionally appear on podcasts such as this one. And so I'll take Julian up on the offer for part 2. But again, it's been an honor and a privilege to represent our college on Workforces Podcasts. And so again, a special thank you to our board, to, again, our Chancellor, Dr. Jeff Nassy. It was, he was the one who said, yeah, we're going to go one step further than you've already taken this. We're going to merge academic affairs and workforce development. And so just a special thank you to Chancellor Nassy and his leadership. And finally, again, to the team that really is works with me and supports me in our work, right? We have an amazing leadership team, the Provost leadership team, but also our faculty and staff. Without our faculty who do what they do in the classroom each and every single day, the college wouldn't exist, right? People don't sign up for Pima Community College because there's a provost or any other position. They sign up for classes because there are faculty who are doing amazing things in service to our students each and every day. And that's just excited, again, to represent all of our team here on this podcast.
Thank you, Ian. It's really been great conversation.
Thank you so much. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation and appreciate you tuning in to Workforces. Thank you to our listeners and guests for their ongoing support, and a special thanks to our producer, Dustin Ramsdell. If you're interested in sponsoring the podcast or want to check out more episodes, please visit workforces.info/podcast. You can also find Workforces wherever you regularly listen to your favorite podcasts. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, and share it with your colleagues and friends. And if you're interested in learning more about Workforces Consulting, please visit workforces.info/consulting for more details about our multi-service practice.